Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to have a bit of a talk, a bit of a conversation about Wuthering Waves 2.4 and the massive amount of success that it's been seeing since its launch just about a day and a half ago. Because somebody's gone ahead, Ophonaut has gone ahead and they've compiled the statistics using a bunch of different app stores, a bunch of different rankings, and they have come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, that this patch, the release of Car Tithia, and of course, Lupa afterwards, and the new region Septimonte has been a massive success on all fronts. So why don't we go ahead, why don't we examine the glue that they brought to this discussion? Of course, you're seeing some Chinese on the screen, but I'm pretty sure they've gone ahead and actually translated a fair amount of this. And so when you see all the news that you're witnessing over here, you might be wondering why this post doesn't have more upvotes. It only has 377. It's talking about how the game has basically been on one of the biggest win streaks it's ever gone on. You would assume that in the main subreddit for the game, this game would get a lot more, or a post like this would get a lot more support. But as we all know, the favorite hobby of the Hoyoshills, the Genshin Impact, the HSR, the ZZZ players that frequent this subreddit, they're on this Wuthering Waves subreddit more than their own game subreddit. Because instead of actually playing their games, their favorite hobby is to go ahead and simply astroturf the fuck out of the Wuthering Waves one. And so let's go ahead and see why this post is getting mass downvoted. In the WuWa subreddit, you'd probably assume there's no reason for that. So with that, we got a bunch of different articles over here, a bunch of different stats. We'll be going through them one by one, and of course, talking about some of the disclaimers that you're going to be seeing in probably some monthly reports later. So here are some of the basic stats. It broke its own all-time peak player count record twice on Steam. And that's going to be this photo over here. As you're all pretty familiar, right? This has been sort of like the game over the past couple of weeks. It's been hovering at around like 12,000, 14,000 players. And during the downtime, you clearly saw there was nobody in the game during the patch. It spiked up and then spiked up again. This was basically the hours after the release of the game. And then, of course, after some downtime where people go to bed and then other people are waking up, it's hit a peak of about 32,000. And so why don't we just go ahead and see what it's looking like right now. Let's just look at the Steam charts real fast. Ooh, buddy boy. And it looks like it's still maintaining. Of course, it took a bit of a dip as people are logging back down for the day, but it's going back up to that previous peak that we saw at the start of the patch of 26K. And that's where we're at right about now. So it looks like people are, you know, there was a big intrigue from players. Some of them left. A majority of them are staying. And guys, do factor in one thing. This is Friday morning. This is Thursday night, Friday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. This is in the middle of the week. This is not even the weekend where most of the players actually will have time to play the game. This is in the middle of the fucking week, and the player counts are looking like this. And so, yeah, that's something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. The game is clearly growing, and it's also, perhaps most importantly of all, retaining those players. So, this is another stat. It's the number 6 best-selling game on Steam. The number 6 best-selling game on Steam. There are, of course, a couple of other free games on here as well, but think about it this way. Look at the number of follows that it has, 28,000. It has 28,000 follows. Look at the relative number of follows of everybody else in this category. They're at 100K plus, other than the fucking Steam Deck, which is a piece of hardware, and it's at number 6. And so, what this means is that the game might not necessarily have the most customers ever, but those customers are very dedicated, and they're spending quite a bit. And to see a gacha game in the top 10, that is absolutely insane. And so let's just take a look and see what the Steam charts are looking like right now. Because of course, right, we just want to make sure that we're looking at updated data whenever possible. Okay, at least in my region, which is North America, it has dropped down to number 19 from its initial peak. But of course, that makes sense because we're about 2 days after the release of the patch, and most of the spending that's probably been done has already occurred, right? That's typically how it works in gacha titles. But as you can see, that is a pretty crazy number for a gacha game to have. And when you consider, ladies and gentlemen, when you consider that Steam mostly consists of newer players, because a lot of people simply either downloaded the game on Epic Games, or they also downloaded the game just from the baseline client, that is a pretty crazy fucking number to have. Number 6, and it's still pretty goddamn crazy to retain number 19. Right now, it's just under Claire Obscure, widely considered one of the best games that's releasing this year. And that's where the sales are at, multiple days after the release of the new character in the new patch, when sales are, supposed to actually fall off. So that right there is some incredible growth. So yeah, that's what it's going to be looking like on the Steam side. Now let's take a look at some other statistics that we have available. It's the top 1 best seller on iOS in Japan. And Zani was 4th place during her release, during the anniversary. Yeah, that's where it is right there, ladies and gentlemen. It's the top number 1 bestseller. Yeah, there we go. And the thing is, the person in the post, they brought all the glue over into this discussion. So yeah, that's in comparison to Zani, who was only in 4th place. And it made 395 million yen on JPiOS day 1 without a rerun. Way higher than even Zani at 272. So these are all just for the brand new character. This is without the bonus of top-ups either, because top-ups reset in version 2.3. And then Zani also had the bonus, right, of 6 rerun banners and 6 new weapons for that entire duration. And Kartithia made almost double, about 1.5 of what Zani plus the 6 rerun banners did. And apparently, JPiOS monthly sales show WuWa has already earned as much as last month and will end higher than any other month so far, except for Yinlin, which, according to data, right, Yinlin was the most successful banner in WuWa history because she was like the first female. A lot of people skipped Jian at the start because he was a dude. Big mistake on their end because Jian's way better than Yinlin. But beyond that, this is potentially one of the best months of revenue that the game will ever see in its history. It's the top 1 bestseller on iOS in Taiwan. Oh yeah, so this is what you can see over here, right? This is why it's like number 1 in Japan, blah blah blah, all of that. It's the top 1 bestseller on iOS in Taiwan. So Zani's 5th place. The top 1 bestseller on iOS in Hong Kong, with Zani in 3rd place. The top 2nd bestseller on iOS in Korea, Zani's in 4th place. And the top 3rd bestseller on iOS in China, where Zani was 7th place. And so that's where it is. It's either a top 3 game on every single regional platform, or it's a top 6 on Steam, which is its newest platform that it's been made available. It is no further than a top 10 on day 1 in every single way. And this is the thing, right? There was a lot of work that went on into this. Y'all remember this whole situation that we had over here? I think this actually helped a lot. I don't know how much Kuro Games actually paid Mr. Jeff Keighley for the advertisement over here, but some people could say that this is a big reason for why it occurred. But you also got to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, the Game Awards is a North American thing. Yeah, the Game Awards is not necessarily a international thing. I don't really think Jeff Keighley is like that huge of like a celebrity beyond North America. Maybe I'm like entirely wrong about that. But the fact of the matter is that this patch was done so well and it was such a smashing success that we don't even have stats for North America. It just completely popped the fuck off in every single East Asian market. Completely popped off in every single East Asian market. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And so, yeah, you would assume, right, with somebody gathering all of these different metrics, with somebody going ahead and showing all of this positive news for one of the best patches that the game has ever had, I personally think this patch might actually be better than 2.0, if I'm frankly being honest. I think this patch is insanely good as like an overall gameplay experience for people. You would assume that this post would have more upvotes. So why don't we go ahead and talk about why it might not? Well, considering how hard they advertised her, that should be a given. I'd be more surprised if she didn't sell well after everything they tried. You can just see the level of absolute bitterness in some of these replies. You can see the bitterness in these replies. Some people are really not happy about these results. And I imagine, right, most of them probably aren't leaving comments because they're completely defeated over here. They're probably just downvoting the post. So now let's go ahead and let's talk about something that is probably not going to align with this performance data. Let's talk about something that people are probably going to say and use as information or proof that these numbers that we're seeing over here are actually the lie. And that's going to be the Gotacha Revenue monthly report. And as we all know, this is used to sow discord. This is used to create misinformation about pretty much every single gacha game in particular. But there's one called Wuthering Waves that has been on the receiving end of some absolute nonsense by the site's creator, Gotacha. Or really, the site's like sponsor or something, Gotacha. But it looks like maybe Gotacha has stopped paying the bills. Because right now the website that all this information is sourced from is not currently working. So maybe, I guess, the number of people calling it a complete fucking scam and manipulated data have convinced the site owner to, I don't know, stop business. Because they're literally on the record, for Wuthering Waves in particular, intentionally manipulating its data to be a straight fucking line for 3 consecutive months. Yeah, they're all over here talking about how they're representing accurate information, how they're representing accurate data. And, yeah, after showing multiple months of varying revenue, they just decided to copy and paste it for 3 months. Yeah, that's, really, really interesting. This is something that's been called out. This is something that's been exposed. And the thing is, when we know that this website has been intentionally downplaying the numbers of WuWa, and we have literal facts, statistics from all of these different iOS stores showing that it was a top 1, top 2, top 3 bestseller, and it's literally showing up on Steam with the highest player count it's ever had, and that it's also showing up as a top 6 bestseller on the platform. Guys, I don't think there's any way for this data to be manipulated any further. That's probably why the website's down. The owner probably had a heart attack trying to figure out how they could make WuWa's numbers look low, despite everything proving the contrary. So yeah, I think they just decided to call it quits. Maybe Gotacha was asking for too much over here. So, one thing we gotta keep in mind is that Gotacha, right, the person that we've been saying is actively manipulating it.
But yeah, unfortunately, revenue PvP post, ZZZ is still gonna be on top of Wuthering Waves. I don't see how it isn't. Because WuWa won't get the last few days. The anniversary revenue won't be there on day 1.
He's got a direct contact to the site owner, and as you can see over here, he can tell him exactly what numbers he wants to show up for Wuthering Waves. Because why else, in God's name, would these numbers be staying the exact fucking same for 3 consecutive months? So keep that in mind the next time you see this monthly revenue report pop up on the r/Gacha Gaming subreddit. As we all know, this is the only time of the month that this subreddit ever gets the time of day for most average people, because it's filled with some of the stupidest, most tribalistic, most Hoyo-pilled individuals on the internet, where their main hobby, like I said before, isn't actually playing their games, it's talking about their games on other subreddits that aren't even related to their games. Because of course, right, the joy to them isn't actually playing games. The joy to them is just pretending that the game they don't actually play is better than others. And it looks like we found some extra glue in this conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Like I was talking about before, Gotacha has some direct links to the site owners of Gotacha Revenue. And this is a bit of his stream during the revenue report for Wuthering Waves back in May. And you can see over here, Wuthering Waves is above Genshin Impact and Zenless Zone Zero. But he couldn't have that. He couldn't have data like that showing up.
What did you cook? Why did you add 1 mil to Wuthering Waves? You're actually pushing WuWa agenda? What is this? And then CN is 4 and 3. No? Oh no, CN is 3. iOS is 3. This is 4 over here. What did you do? Why did you add 1 mil to iOS on both sides?
And this is the type of conversation he's having that led to results like this, ladies and gentlemen. The same exact revenue for 3 months. He just decided to point out random fucking numbers that said needed fixing so that he could just post the same exact revenue for 3 consecutive months. The site owner was actually going ahead and putting in the accurate, proper data, and then Gotacha just told him he needs to start making the fucking numbers up and just start subtracting random millions here and there. That is the type of dumb shit that whoever is in charge of this website that's thankfully down is cooking up with Gotacha. So let's stick to the facts, let's stick to the actual arguments, and let's stick to the actual statistics. And everything that those stats are telling us right now is that this game absolutely, completely popped the fuck off in version 2.4, and it is blowing out the competition in every single way possible. So with that, let me know what you all think about all of this info, all of this glue, and of course, all of these incredible stats. Peace out.